Emotional intelligence is a fascinating field. It's been demonstrated to improve our happiness, our well being, our effectiveness, our productivity, and virtually every phase of life. We begin by understanding that there are four basic quadrants to emotional intelligence to understand the whole construct. It begins with self awareness. Self awareness or self recognition is coming to terms with who you are, how you think, how you feel, and why those things occur. Self management is about managing those skills, being able to regulate yourself, being able to actively choose your emotions, making deliberate decisions. Social recognition is about social awareness. How do you see other people? Being able to empathize with them, being able to relate to other people, being able to connect effectively. And last of the four quadrants is social management, which asks, how are your relationships doing? Do you have good friends, good associates? Can you resolve conflict? Can you work well with other people? All in all, it creates a holistic way of understanding your feelings and your relationships. Now we begin with self-awareness. Self-awareness is a looking into yourself, a recognizing of your feelings, your character, what motivates you, what desires do you have, what are you looking for in the world, what's important to you. So we spend some time on this deliberate self-reflection to understand ourselves and ourselves in context with relationships, friends, and just about everything else. Now, this set of emotional, social, and relational skills guides the way we perceive and understand and express ourselves. Who do we like? How do we connect? How do we exchange information with other people? How do we cope with the stresses, the strains, the challenges of every day? How do we manage information? In short, how do we handle those things within ourselves? Now, sometimes emotional intelligence sounds like a complicated thing, but actually it's fairly simple. It begins with noticing your own emotions, regulating yourself, handling how you're going to do things, and developing into the person you want to be, who you want to relate to. It creates an effective dynamic internally and externally. Very often you'll hear this referred to as soft skill development, intrapersonal excellence, and or interpersonal excellence. So we start looking at all of those dynamics, we start regulating them together, and we start with the basic quadrants. Now today we're focused on self-awareness. What causes you to feel the way you feel? What kind of effects do my emotions have on my performance? How do they affect my communication? How do they affect my thinking? We don't have emotions in a vacuum. They impact just about everything. Do you understand yourself? Do you understand why you do things? Does it make a difference to you? How good are you at accepting yourself? Are you comfortable with who you are, with why you do things? Can you comfortably assert who you are? It's been found that people who can identify their emotions very well are much more effective than people who simply can't. Those who identify their emotions very effectively are much more constructive at creating the life they want. So we try and create a dynamic where not only do you spend time regulating yourself, but that awareness is going to impact how you are throughout life. Now, this dynamic is constantly changing. It's constantly in motion. It's constantly moving. We're constantly shifting. We're constantly changing. There is no consistent of this is who I am, this is who I will be, and I won't change. We have a past, a present, and a future. Our perceptions, our realities may be different than those of other people, but we respond to our perceptions, we respond to our predispositions, and then we continue on. Our feelings are going to connect us to other people. It's going to determine very dramatically, who do I like, who don't I like, who do I feel I know and I'm comfortable with, who do I feel I can trust, who can I be myself with, who can I be vulnerable to. And typically, once we see that there's a drift or a discrepancy between our thoughts and our feelings, the mind does in fact have a tendency to close that discrepancy. We tend to create ourselves on a daily basis. Self-awareness is about understanding emotions, and our scientists have actually come to the conclusion that not only is this psychology, but it's about neuroscience as well. What happens is, as we progress, as we understand the day, as we understand ourselves, there are chemical interactions in the brain. The fact is, our brain works through both chemicals and electronic shifts. We constantly send ourselves messages. We constantly wire and rewire our mind. And if we're self-aware, we can choose how we want to create the mind. Now, the chemicals the brain has are pretty simple. Normally, we'll find out that some of them are much more constructive and we like them better. And we'll find out that others create feelings that we're not quite as comfortable with. The dopamine system in the brain is going to create internal rewards. It's going to motivate us. It's going to feel good. It's going to create pleasure. The endorphins in the brain are responsible to kill pain. They prevent us from being hurt. Oxytocins are going to be generated when we feel trust with other people, when we feel generous, when we feel relating. Serotonin is going to create self-esteem, moods. It's going to help us sleep. Conversely, too much cortisol is going to create stress, discomfort, and make us feel much less comfortable with the world. Adrenaline flows when we're dealing with the fight or flight response. And last but not least, GABA creates peace of mind, concentration, and sets us off on rest states when we need them. Plutchik created a basic framework for us to understand emotions. And the more we understand about neuroscience and the way the brain actually works, the more we can relate to how these are processed. Now, the first statement is crucial. Emotions are information. They're telling us something about our world, our responses, and what's happening internally. That means, in and of themselves, they're neither good nor bad. They simply are. Now, other interesting factors about emotions are we're always going to experience them in the present tense, in the here and now. So when we reflect on past experience, we feel it now. When we think about our plans for the future, when we feel anxiety, when we feel worry about what might happen, we're feeling it now. Now, normally, the easiest way to consider emotions is, are they helpful or are they counterproductive? When we experience grief, when we've had a major trauma in our life, that doesn't feel comfortable, but it may be helpful to understand what's happening in our world. So in one respect, that's useful. Typically, we experience counterproductive emotions. These bar us from reaching our goals. They make other people uncomfortable with us. Anger, anxiety, resentment, depression typically are counterproductive and considered negative. Now, does it feel good? Is it pleasant? Or is it an unpleasant emotion? When we feel happy, when we feel serene, when we feel tranquil, when we feel good, those are pleasant emotions. Unpleasant ones are noxious. We're not comfortable with them. We're not at ease. They tend to be upsetting and off-putting. What other dynamics do we have? Typically, our emotions are either active or passive. Are they energizing us? I'm excited. I'm enthusiastic. I want to do something. Those are active emotions. They energize us. Passive emotions. I'm depressed. I'm defeated. Passive emotions tend to create inaction. They tend to get us not to move. I'm comfortable. I'm serene. So we start considering the framework for these. Emotions are always personal. Each one of us experiences them our own particular way. There is no right or wrong understanding of them. It's just recognizing your internal dynamic. They're transient, which means, very simply, they change, they shift. We rapidly move from one emotion to another during the day, and typically we experience hundreds, if not even more, emotions during a typical day. Now what happens? Negative emotions. These are the ones that impede us from success. They make our life a little bit tougher. We don't get to where we want to be. We tend to be uncomfortable with them. Anger, fright, guilt, shame, sadness, envy, jealousy, disgust. Some of these we're actually born with, while others we learn over time. We really learn what things we should feel guilty or ashamed of. They don't come with us by birth. But things that frighten us, danger, sadness, some of those are automatic and inborn. Negative emotions restrict our ability to act. They restrict our performance. And over the long run, they tend to create illness, disease, discomfort, and not create the life we want. Positive emotions expand. They lead us to where we want to go. Are you happy? Are you joyful? Surprisingly, people are not nearly as happy as they want to be. Do you take pride in something? Do you love people? Are you relieved? Are you serene? Are you content? Are you comfortable? We wind up having this wide array of positive emotions as well. Now, these not only contribute to our success, but they promote health. The more positive emotions we experience, the better we react to them, the more things are going to go our way.